Hello and welcome to a new video from the Society for the Environment. Today we focus on the Registered Environmental Practitioner professional registration. And to be a little bit more specific, we're going to be looking at how to apply for the registration. To prevent any confusion before we go any further, Registered Environmental Practitioner is also known by its postnominals REnvP, and will likely be referred to that throughout the video today. At the time of recording, the REnvP registration was publicly launched just 2 weeks ago and is therefore pretty much brand new. To put a name to a voice, my name is Phil Underwood. I'm the engagement manager here at the Society for the Environment. I will be providing an introduction before handing over to my colleague Geoff to provide the details that you will need for your application. Geoff is our head of licensing, registration and standards, and he's the man in the know when it comes to all things professional registration. If you have any questions following the webinar, please feel free to email either myself or Geoff, or feel free to give us a call as well. So just some background to begin with. The Society for the Environment holds a Royal Charter which was awarded in 2004. We now hold 3 professional registers for environmental professionals. They are the Registered Environmental Technician, or REnvTech, the Registered Environmental Practitioner, or REnvP, and the Chartered Environmentalist, or CEnv. The number of environmental professionals registered across the 3 registrations currently stands at over 7,500 globally, which is a number that continues to grow alongside the growing need for environmental professionalism and good practice, given the challenges and opportunities that we can address at the moment during these challenging times. The Society operates as an umbrella professional body, currently made up of 25 professional bodies known as our member bodies. Now, 24 of these hold a license granted by the Society for the Environment to award the CEnv register or registration to their appropriately knowledgeable and experienced members. 7 member bodies hold an REnvP license, very important for this particular webinar. And 4 member bodies hold an REnvTech license. Now, to skip back slightly, for REnvP, you'll need to apply via your membership of one of these 7 professional bodies, which is effectively the first step in becoming an REnvP, which Geoff will cover in a few moments' time. Given the early stages of the registration, having only been introduced a few weeks ago, it is likely that more professional body routes will become available in the near future. But these 7 are currently the 7 licensed members able to offer REnvP registration to their members at the time of recording. This is the basic agenda for today's webinar. It's designed to run through the application process in basic forms. I will then jump back onto the mic to provide an overview of who REnvP is for and why you might want to consider applying. So for now, I'm going to hand straight over to Geoff, and I'm going to pop back a bit later on. So Geoff, are you there?
I am here. Thanks, Phil. The eligibility criteria. These are taken from the REnvP practice direction. And as you can see, they're pretty straightforward. You need to be a member of a licensed member, have knowledge up to QCF level 5, for example, HND, have some experience, comply with our Code of Professional Conduct, and do CPD. Very easy when you say it quickly, but there is a process you will need to follow, a route to registration. It is a thorough and professional route and called, next slide, the professional review route. Currently, it is the only route to registration, and it comprises of 2 elements, namely the application process and the assessment. To start, you will need to complete an application form which you will be provided by your licensed member, through which you will demonstrate that you satisfy the eligibility criteria for registration as an RNP. The application form shall also include a commitment to continuing professional development, CPD, and to the Code of Professional Conduct. You will need to submit written evidence both suitable and sufficient enough to satisfy your licensed member that you demonstrate achievement of each of the RNP competencies. That's all 12 of them. This should include examples of your professional work and be cross-referenced to your CV and demonstrate the relevance of your qualifications and/or experience. Any written evidence will need to be validated by at least 2 mentors, sponsors, or supervisors who will confirm the authenticity of your application and that it fairly represents your ability and achievements. Ideally, the mentors, sponsors, or supervisors should be RNPs, and their relationship to you and the number of years they have known you will need to be specified. Your licensed member will satisfy itself that your application has been validated and that you are deemed suitable for registration as an REnvP. Now, I've mentioned them briefly already, but they are so important they deserve their own slides, the REnvP competencies. And these are conveniently put into 4 groups. Now, here are groups A and B. These will likely be contextualized by your licensed member and focused on your particular discipline. And these are groups C and D, sometimes called the generic soft skills because they will be the same across all sectors, but they are still important and need to be achieved and evidenced. There will be 2 elements you'll need to cover in your application. The first, academic qualifications. You will need to have acquired knowledge up to QCF level 5, but whether your academic qualifications and their levels are relevant shall be determined by your licensed member. We suggest you ask your licensed member before you apply to advise if your qualifications are relevant. And the second element is practical experience. You will need to have sufficient, relevant practical experience to be able to demonstrate the RNP competencies. This need not be continuous. To be considered as relevant, work-based practice does need to have a direct and distinct environmental focus and/or context. It may comprise paid employment, voluntary activity, academic work placements, or applied research, but may not include pure academic study only. Experience that develops general professional competencies, for example, general communication and presentation skills, research skills, and project management skills, may be included at the discretion of your licensed member and in proportion to the RNP competencies. The nature of relevant work-based practice will reflect the domain of each individual licensed member, but it is a requirement that it should be environmental in nature and clearly reflect the RNP competencies. There could be a third element to your application, a professional review interview, a PRI, or sometimes called peer review interview, though this is not a formal requirement for RNP. However, a licensed member may choose to require or offer one. This may be for one or more of the following reasons: a reasonable adjustment. It is an inseparable membership requirement for a licensed member, where the licensed member believes the candidate would benefit from an interview, or where the licensed member believes it would be appropriate. The assessors or PRI panel will assess you against each of the 12 REnvP competencies, using the evidence obtained from your written submission and, if applicable, your PRI. They may only recommend that you should be registered as a REnvP if satisfied that you have demonstrated all the competencies to a satisfactory level. That's the assessment. And on completion of that assessment, the post-assessment part, when the recommendation of the assessors or PRI panel will need to be ratified by the relevant committee at your licensed member, often the membership committee. Then your licensed member will write to you, normally within 3 months, to let you know the outcome. Hopefully, you will have been successful and your licensed member will register you with us. Right, back to Phil for who RNP is for and why you should apply.
Thank you very much, Geoff. So that was a fairly high level look through at the process of how to become a registered environmental practitioner. Now there is more detail available, but we're going to look at who is RFP for now, and then on the next slide we'll look into why you might want to become an RFP. So in basic forms, RFP is for individuals able to apply their knowledge of environmental good practice to their work at a practitioner level within their discipline area. They are committed to continuing professional development, or CPD, and abide by a code of professional conduct. The practitioner level, in inverted commas, is it sits directly between the REnvTech and the Chartered Environmentalist levels. RFP registration is for core environmental professionals such as ecologists, environment managers, environmental consultants, air quality officers, and so on. But it is also for professionals with another core discipline who specialize in environmental work. We're talking engineers who apply environmental expertise throughout their work, or scientists, or arboriculturalists, or water managers, for example. They could be a chartered engineer who applies environmental good practice to their work, and RFP would be a relevant method of showcasing this additional skill set alongside their core engineering work. Remember, you don't have to be always working on environmental projects or within an environmentally focused role. It can be part of your role. You would, however, still be expected to apply your environmental knowledge where possible throughout. You don't need to be working full-time either. You can certainly be working part-time and gain RFP registration as a part-time employee. You could even be between jobs, which would seem to some as an ideal opportunity to apply, possibly. RFP is aligned with the Level 6 Environmental Practitioner Degree Apprenticeship. So the knowledge and the experience gained through completion of the apprenticeship should arm you with the relevant skill set to successfully apply for RFP once completed. RFP is relevant to all career levels, all ages, and all demographics. A slight caveat there is that you do require relevant experience, so it will be unavailable to those very early in their careers. Generally, we look for at least 3 years of experience, but that is dependent on the quality and the level of experience. So it may be longer, it may be shorter than that. It's also designed to be an accessible registration. For example, the Institution of Environmental Sciences, or IES, they offer 2 routes, a written route and an interview route. The latter is to be beneficial to those with conditions such as dyslexia or vision impairment and so on, who may be disadvantaged via the standard route, which is something that we want to avoid. As part of your career goals, you may wish to use RFP as a clear pathway to environmental chartership as well. The RFP and Chartered Environmentalist, or CEnv, competencies are directly linked, offering a progressionary route to CEnv registration. So whilst gaining the additional knowledge and experience required for CEnv, you can demonstrate your ambition with RFP registration. RFP could also be the next progressionary route from REnvTech. So there's a clear progressionary route between REnvTech to RFP to CEnv, if that's what you are aiming for. And clearly they are absolutely good registrations in their own right. So why would RFP benefit you? As a very much a whistle-stop tour, firstly, you can add the RFP letters after your name, which is a symbol of professionalism. Becoming a RFP demonstrates that an individual has been judged by their peers to be working at a professional standard, implementing and championing good environmental practices. This high standard incorporates not only knowledge and awareness, but skills and application of knowledge in practice, which is fantastic for you and for your employer if they're looking to demonstrate expertise to clients and stakeholders and so on. Environmental professionals with proven competence and expertise are needed more than ever before, really. As we face huge environmental challenges, such as tackling the climate and environmental emergencies and biodiversity loss, we need those with the proven expertise, skills, and commitment to thrive in their work. And having competent, dedicated people working in the environmental sector helps to enhance public trust, respect, and buy-in, which is pretty vital for what we're trying to achieve. As already mentioned, RFP is a clear pathway to environmental chartership if that's what you're aiming for. Plus, if you register in 2021, you'll be one of the first to achieve RFP. Now, that's not only an excellent talking point in job interviews, you will also be an example for others, showcasing your commitment to ensuring high standards and competence. To find out more about the benefits and why you might want to become an RFP, please head to the website, which has been in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And for those watching on YouTube, I'm just going to pop a link to a very useful video at the top of this video. So that brings us to the end of why, although there are many other reasons as well. We're going to go straight into some questions. So, Geoff, are you back on the microphone?
I am.
Excellent, excellent. So we've had a couple of questions in already, so we'll go through those. The first one I covered very briefly, possibly. How many years of experience is recommended for RFP? Which is a fairly there isn't one answer to that, is there, Geoff?
No,
really?
No, not at all. I mean, what we try to do in introducing RNP is make it as flexible as possible. So whereas it's quite fixed with CEnv that you really need around 4 years experience, as you said, 3 years is a good guide, but it could be a lot less depending on the variety of experience that you've got. So it shouldn't be that, oh, I've only got 2 years experience, I can't apply yet. You definitely can, and you need to speak to your license member about what that experience means and whether or not that's acceptable to them. So yeah, how many years? Well, it's nothing that you could say a definite answer to.
No, you could have 20 years of experience, but if you don't have the experience at the right level for RFP in terms of your environmental work, then you might fall short still. But
Yes.
then again, if you have 2 years of relevant experience at a good level, then you could be in a good standing to become an RFP. So it does differ slightly, which is
I mean, for somebody with 20 years experience but doing pretty much the same thing, that probably isn't as valuable experience as somebody that's been working for 2 or 3 years on a variety of projects and work things. So either should really speak to their licensed member and get advice about what is relevant and what is of value.
Absolutely. And you might already, as a member of the professional body, you might have had to already demonstrate a certain amount of experience, which may well cover your experience needed for RFP. But it's worth having a conversation about that to figure out what is the correct way for you to go about it. Okay. Now this other question here is, so they hold PIEMA, so practitioner level with IEMA, and you're a member of CIAT, which is the Chartered Institute of Architectural Technologists. And they're currently completing their CEnv application via CIAT. Fantastic. Wishing you all the best with that. Now, essentially, is it worth going through IEMA to gain your RNvP registration as well as your CEnv registration via CIAT? What are your thoughts on that one, Geoff?
Well, it's a good question, because you could definitely, holding the practitioner award from IEMA, you'd be in the right place to apply for RNP pretty much immediately. But it would be very unusual for somebody to hold both RNP and CEnv. It would involve paying double fees, and most people wouldn't choose to do that. So I think I guess it would depend on how soon you think you'll be getting your CEnv application in and how far away you are from that. If you're working on that now, but you think it's going to take a year to complete, or a year before you're going to be ready, it might be worth getting the RNP now, and then you've got something to recognise your professional status. If it's in a couple of weeks you're going to be applying, then it wouldn't be worth RNP. And as Phil says, good luck with the CEnv application.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we probably covered it, but RFP can be a stepping stone to CEnv. CEnv is what you might class as the next step above RFP. So, but there again, they are linked to your discipline. So the CIAT discipline is different to the IEMA discipline. So you may well be chartered level environmentalist at CIAT. You may not be at IEMA. So you might want to have the both to show that on both areas of your work. But slightly complicated one, that one, and we'll be happy to talk to you about that a bit more in a bit more detail.
Yeah, it'd be very unusual for somebody to hold. I mean, that RNP level 5, CEnv level 7, it would be unusual to try and hold both.
It would. Okay, so next question: how long does the certification last, or how long is it valid for, Geoff?
As long as you pay your registration fees, as long as you remain a member of your licensed member, as long as you complete CPD and follow the Code of Professional Conduct. So basically, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria and pay your registration fees, as long as you do that. There is no set time that the registration lasts. It's really dependent on you keeping current and you paying your fees.
Yeah, a huge part of being professionally registered is showcasing that you can stay up to date and have the up-to-date knowledge in your work. So that's where the CPD is required, which you'll need to submit via your professional body that you register via. So if you don't keep up with that, for example, then there's a possibility that you might lose the registration, but it's quite unusual, it's fair to say. So generally speaking, you're able to keep it as long as you're keeping up to date. and paying your fees and so on, as Geoff mentioned.
Absolutely.
The next question is, do you provide any study material? And the short answer is no. And I'm going to pass over to Geoff to explain why, really.
Well, any study material that we would be able to produce would be generic. And really what you need is something that is, as I said in the presentation there, the competencies will be contextualized to fit in with the particular sector that you're working in, that your licensed member, your professional body is within. So generic study materials might not be as useful as something that your licensed member has produced, your professional body, that will be attuned to the sector that you're involved in. I mean, of course, we provide, there's webinars like this, and there's other things that we do, podcasts, etc., which may be useful, but not generic study materials. I don't think that would be. That's not something that we do.
I think if you'd like to class it that way, you could use the RNvP competencies as your study guidelines, as in terms of the bits of knowledge and experiences that you require to become RNvP. Use that as your basis, and go and find those opportunities that allow you to meet those particular competencies. That's probably a useful way to look at it, I think.
Yeah. And I think, again, it goes back to your licensed member, your professional body will help you find those opportunities. Speak to them.
Absolutely. And I'm sure your employer may well be able to help you with being able to have various bits of experience that you might be missing.
Of course.
And there's lots of opportunities out there. And you can do it outside of your employer as well. So outside of your work, if there's voluntary opportunities and so on, and that would work really well. We did a podcast very recently, our latest podcast, which was an RNvP special. And we had the very first registered environmental practitioner join us on that podcast. And she mentioned during that her voluntary work and so on added to her application, which she believed helped her a lot in terms of having the success of the application. So you can look elsewhere in different areas of your life, not necessarily just through work, but clearly there has to be a work element to it. Okay. So another question here is, so they joined late, no problem at all, but they're asking, what is RNvP and what are the advantages and benefits of having it? So
I think that's you.
I could do that probably. Yeah.
I think that's you.
Yeah. RNvP, Registered Environmental Practitioner, is a practitioner level professional registration that sits between Registered Environmental Technician and Chartered Environmentalist registration. And essentially, having RNvP showcases that you're able to apply your environmental knowledge of good practice, your experience at a practitioner level within the area that you work within, which can range, as you will have seen from, you may not have seen actually because you joined late, but there's 7 professional bodies that you can apply via, and the RNvP would link to your work within that sector that they cover, essentially. So the main advantages are the fact that you can call yourself a registered environmental practitioner. That showcases to yourself, to employers, to your employer's clients or your clients, that you have met a externally recognized competence to show your level of expertise within your environmental work. It's something you can use as a stepping stone to chartered environmentalist if that's what you're aiming for. So it stands you in good stead with that. And it shows that you're leading the way towards a better environmental future, essentially. So we need leaders. We need those who can prove their expertise to set us on that path to, I guess, what's a better way to say it, a greener future. So to be able to showcase your knowledge is extremely beneficial to you. Now, that was slightly waffled, but hopefully gives you a bit of an idea of what it is. Now, that's the last live question here, but we did have a couple of questions before we started. You may have noticed you had the opportunity to ask a question when you registered for the webinar. And one of the questions, which might be quite useful for some, is what does it cost? I'm going to go to Geoff for that one.
Right. Well, it's an initial registration fee of £30 plus a registration fee of £30. So initially £60 in your first year, and then a renewal fee of £30. However, partly due to, or mainly due to the COVID situation, the Society have been able to reduce fees until the 31st of March. So registration would be £30 for your first year if you can apply and get through the assessment process and be registered by the 31st of March. So £30 this year and £30 in subsequent years is the current fee.
Okay. And that's the cost from that now you pay your registration through your professional body, not through us. So that's what we charge for each individual going through the RNvP process. Now, your professional body may well charge you admin fees and so on top of that. So it may well work out slightly differently, but it's best to talk to the professional body about that to find out the final costs to you.
Yes, yeah, definitely speak to your licensed member, speak to your professional body about what the total fees are, but what we charge is that very reasonable £30.
Very reasonable indeed.
Yes.
Just another question in here. Do you send us a copy of this webinar? Yes, I certainly will do. When you registered for the webinar, if you said yes to receiving emails from us, then I will send you a link to the webinar, which will be available on our YouTube channel. If you didn't opt in to receive emails from us, then if you just head to the YouTube channel or our website, you'll be able to see a recording of the webinar. Okay. So, unless any other questions come in over the next couple of seconds, and I'll keep it open for a moment, what we'll do is close the webinar for now. And if you have any questions after the webinar, then we are absolutely happy to help with that. You can find our details at the website, socenv.org.uk, or if you head back to the recording, you'll see our details closer towards the start of the webinar. Now we do have another question in here. Are templates provided to input CPD on the SOCEnv website? In short, no. So you would, in terms of CPD and recording that, you do that via your professional body that you've applied through, not with the Society for the Environment. So they would be the organisation that you would submit the CPD to, and they would be able to assess whether your CPD is up to the standard of continuing as a registered environmental practitioner, simply because they have the expertise within the area that you have applied via. Otherwise, from the Society for the Environment point of view, we'd have to have quite a broad range of expertise here to be able to cover that. So it will be done via the professional body that you apply via. Anything to add to that, Geoff?
No, you completely covered what I was going to say. Well done.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. There's the first for everything. Okay, well, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for those questions. Now, before you disappear, essentially, what now, Geoff?
Well, there we are. A straightforward process and hopefully an enjoyable, informative webinar. You've patiently listened to our voices throughout the webinar. So later this afternoon, after a well-deserved lunch, please do what's listed on the screen. But before that, back to Phil to close.
Thank you, Geoff. I've already mentioned it once, very briefly, that we had a podcast very recently, which was a special podcast with the very first Registered Environmental Practitioner, which is Rihanna Jarvis, REnvP, and also with the CEO of IEMA, and we also had a chartered environmentalist from Director of Bridges at Ramboll, given an employer perspective of where REnvP fits within their plans and so on, and how it works within a large organisation like that. So it's very much worth having a listen to the podcast. You can access it via the website. So if you go to socenv.org.uk/podcast, you'll find it there. Or if you search for EnvCast on Spotify, Stitcher, and various others, Apple Podcasts being another one, you'll be able to find it on there. So it's worth a listen to that one. Good perspectives from 3 different points of view. I would highly recommend having a listen to that. Unfortunately, I am hosting it again, but hopefully if you can get past that, it's an enjoyable podcast to listen to. You've seen the website at the bottom left of your screen for the whole webinar, but if you had any more questions and so on, or if you wanted to find out more information, there's a lot of detail at socenv.org.uk/RNP, including videos, quite short videos on how, why, what is it, and so on, and various different insights from different organizations and the professional bodies that you could apply via as well. So really good videos, as well as guidance on, you can find the competencies on there and lots more information. Okay, so after that, you could start to put together your application. And if you do, wishing you the best of luck. If you have any questions, do get in touch. But for now, thank you very much for listening to the webinar. And we may well speak to some of you soon. And we may well see you in the next webinar. So thank you very much for listening.